Joining us now to break down the day's top headlines and what they mean moving forward is Corrin Rankin, the founder of Legacy Republican Alliance and an advisory board member for the Trump campaign. So, Corrin, when we look at the media and really how it's dealing with all these issues, it seems like actually the election is a separate story. It seems like it's not necessarily on the forefront. It doesn't lead the top of the newscast a lot of times. It's oftentimes the police reforms or coronavirus pandemic, things of that nature. So I just want to get your input really early off the bat. What do you make of the way that the media is handling this moment? And when I say moment, I mean just the time that we're living in right now.
I think the media it's polarizing right now. They're focusing on things that, we should be focusing on where our country is going right now. And we should be focusing on this election that's currently taking place. I mean, here we have a president who has made tremendous strides, tremendous accomplishments, especially within the Black community. He's promises made, promises kept president. And these are the things that we should be focusing on. We have Joe Biden, who can barely remember where he's at during his, quote unquote campaign events, if that's what he'd like to call them. And he's just in no way, shape, or form capable of, completing a sentence, nonetheless running our country.
And I do want to touch on Joe Biden because there was an interesting development yesterday with Politico, which we'll talk about a little bit later, more in depth in the show. But they suggested that perhaps Kamala Harris may be the vice president on his ticket. Do you think that when we look at, for example, what this upcoming election means, do you think that there will be more of a focus on the vice presidency, acknowledging that there are some questions in the media, and I'm not just talking about the right-wing media, those on the left have voiced these criticisms even during the Democratic primary as well, about his cognitive abilities or his ability to lead at this time in his career. Do you think that puts a greater emphasis on the VP role?
I think it does. I think that during this time that, I'm obviously not a Democrat strategist, but if Joe Biden even stands a chance to even, pretend to be a cognitive, capable candidate, he needs a really strong vice president pick. And even with that, I still don't believe that America is going to vote for Joe Biden. I mean, the left has gone so far to the left that they are, like Elon Musk tweeted recently, the left is losing the middle. And they've lost suburban Democrats with their far left-leaning rhetoric to defund the police and imagine something else. This is not even working in California. Here we are, liberal, coastal, elite California. They're not going for it. They don't want to defund the police. They're not buying into all this rhetoric. And a lot of them feel that the Democrats have basically just left them behind.
And of course, a lot of conservatives would say that this whole type of mentality is facilitated by the media because they don't cover it in an adversarial way, the same way that they do a lot of conservative positions, but especially the president himself. I mean, for example, we could show the clips about them calling these demonstrations peaceful, overlapped with the violence that takes place at night. I mean, a reasonable American and a reasonable voter knows that both things can be true at once. They can be peaceful during the day and then get a little bit more violent at night. I mean, that's what is happening. It's not anything that's being hidden any means by any way. But when we talk about how the Trump campaign can then overcome those type of obstacles. We know that they have a strong digital arm. We know that the president, for example, uses Twitter. Will that type of messaging be effective to the average voter going into the election year, acknowledging the media's stance?
Absolutely it will, because here's the thing is, what I said earlier is that the Democrat Party has left their own behind. They have left the middle of the road, moderate Democrats behind. Suburban Democrats feel left out by the media's current rhetoric. And if you think about it, the left-wing media has to carry the Joe Biden campaign because he's incapable of carrying it himself. And they can see what they're in for. The Trump campaign has done a tremendous job of highlighting Joe Biden's past performance, his past policies. And, Californians and the rest of the nation are well aware that Joe Biden's positions today, that they were the exact opposite in the past.
And it would be somewhat ironic if he picked Kamala Harris as well, because she is the individual during the Democratic primary who attacked him for those very issues that you're talking about, whether it's race relations, whether it's his 1994 crime bill, whether it's the busing, segregation. I mean, there's a long list that she brought up in order to take aim at Joe Biden, and those things will be brought up at some point during this campaign. And a lot of people will look at polls, and some people will brush them off, some people will take them seriously. But do you think there will be a point in this campaign that'll be a major turning point, such as a debate or something like that? Or do you think this will be a gradual type of growth for the Trump campaign numbers leading up to November?
I think it's going to be a gradual growth because I think the Democrats are basically just dismantling themselves. If we kind of just leave them alone there and leave them out there alone, the Democrat run cities, people are seeing that they're just not capable of running their cities. They're not capable of keeping their communities safe. And I will say one thing about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Both of them, what they do have in common is that their rhetoric today completely conflicts with their policy in the past.
No, you're exactly right. They're going to have a hard time reaching out to progressive voters if that is the ticket as well, because Kamala Harris does not have a progressive record as a prosecutor. Joe Biden does not have a progressive record, period. So I think you're right to say that as we come out of the coronavirus pandemic, as the economy climbs back, as the unrest on the streets does start to dwindle, I think the president's numbers will come up a little bit more with all of those issues, because what we're talking about today is not what we're going to be talking about in 3 months. But Corrin, I appreciate you coming on, breaking down the messaging, the media, and what's behind the election. Thank you very much.